The wind bit sharply through the broken windows of the small shack on the edge of town. Inside, 12-year-old Amara sat shivering beside her little brother, holding his tiny hands against her chest to keep him warm. Their mother, exhausted from working 2 jobs, lay asleep on a thin mattress. Hunger gnawed at Amara's stomach, but she ignored it. What worried her most was her brother's wheezing cough. They hadn't eaten properly in days, and medicine was a luxury they couldn't afford. That morning, Amara made a decision. She tied her mother's old scarf around her head, slipped on her worn-out shoes, and stepped out into the city streets. She wasn't going to beg, she promised herself that. But she couldn't let her brother waste away. There had to be someone out there, someone who could help. At the far edge of the city stood a towering mansion, guarded by steel gates and whispered stories. It belonged to Ethan Cross, a once powerful millionaire who had built his empire from nothing. But tragedy had struck. A car accident had left him paralyzed from the waist down. Since then, Ethan had withdrawn from the world, surrounded only by wealth that couldn't heal him and a bitterness that kept everyone away. Amara had heard rumors about him, that he hadn't smiled in years, that people left his house in tears, that he trusted no one. Still, something told her she had to try. She stood at the gate, her heart pounding. The security guard looked down at her and frowned. "What do you want, kid?" Amara's voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. "I need to see Mr. Cross. Please. Just once." The guard scoffed, but something in her determination made him pause. After a long silence, he muttered, "Fine. Don't say I didn't warn you." Moments later, Amara found herself standing in front of Ethan Cross. He sat in a sleek wheelchair, his sharp blue eyes scanning her like she was an intruder. "You've got 10 seconds, he said coldly. "Make it quick." Amara swallowed hard. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled note she had written the night before. She held it out to him with trembling hands. It read, "Will you trade your leftovers for a miracle?" Ethan read the note, then looked back at her. His lips curled into a bitter laugh. "A miracle? Do I look like a miracle worker? Kid, I can't even walk." But Amara didn't flinch. "Maybe not for you, but you can be one for us." That silence stretched. Ethan's laugh faded. Something about the fire in her eyes unsettled him. He gestured for her to explain. And so, Amara poured her heart out. She spoke about her little brother's illness, her mother's exhaustion, their hunger. She didn't ask for money, only the food they threw away daily, the scraps no one wanted. "We don't need riches," she whispered. "We just need a chance." For the first time in years, Ethan felt his chest tighten, not from anger, but from something he thought he'd buried long ago, empathy. He tried to brush it off. "Fine, you'll get some leftovers. Happy now." But the next day, when Amara returned, Ethan found himself waiting. She didn't just take the food and run. She stayed, thanked him, and even asked how his day was. Nobody had asked him that in years. Day after day, she came back. She brought drawings her brother made, told silly stories about school, and even teased him when he complained too much. Slowly, something began to shift. The mansion that once echoed with silence now carried the sound of laughter, hers and, shockingly, his. But life wasn't suddenly easy. Amara's brother's condition worsened. One evening, she arrived with tears streaking her cheeks. "He needs medicine, Mr. Cross. I don't know what else to do." Ethan's old instincts, the businessman who never lost a deal, kicked in. He picked up the phone, called his private doctor, and arranged everything. Within hours, Amara's brother was admitted and treated. That night, Amara hugged him tightly. "You didn't just give us food. You gave us hope." Ethan couldn't sleep. For years, he had believed he was useless, that his wheelchair defined him. But this little girl saw past his broken body and gave him a purpose again. Weeks turned into months. Amara's brother grew stronger. Ethan started funding her education, insisting she deserved more than survival. But in truth, it wasn't charity. It was friendship. She gave him life as much as he gave her. The greatest miracle wasn't the food, the medicine, or even the wealth. It was the bond between a paralyzed millionaire and a poor little girl who dared to believe in kindness. Years later, as Amara stood at her college graduation, Ethan sat proudly in the front row, clapping with tears in his eyes. When the reporters asked her how she made it despite all the odds, she looked at him and said, "Because someone believed that even leftovers can create miracles." And Ethan, the man who once laughed at the word, miracle, smiled and whispered, she was mine.